All right, you guys. Well, today I have for you a 2021 Volkswagen Passat. One of the more unique options in this mid-size segment. It is a little bit old. This generation came out back in 2012, and they made like subtle updates, subtle refreshes to it. The most recent refresh, I believe, was either 2020 or 2021. You can see the front end looks a little bit nicer compared to the 2012 model. But keep going around here. Still has like pretty much the same shape to it. Actually, I really like this back end styling here. I think they modernized it pretty good on the outside. But we'll hop in. It's got just a traditional key. Showing its age a little bit there. But we'll start it up. Typical VW, you have to put your foot on the brake and then start it. All right. This interior, this is one part of the car I wish they changed a little bit more with the refresh, because it still looks pretty much the same as it did in 2012. This screen is like a little bit nicer. It's a typical Volkswagen screen. It's not the glitziest or the most glamorous. Has your basic functions, you know, radio, your media for Bluetooth, your phone. Also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So we'll try that. Just show you guys what it looks like real quick here. So yeah, this is Apple CarPlay. It looks pretty much the same as every other car with CarPlay. So it's pretty nice that they give you that. This volume control is kind of weird. Like the logo moves with the dial. That's just like one thing I noticed. These gauges are pretty plain to look at. Nothing totally special. Do wish they looked a little bit nicer. I'm not super picky with like analog gauges. I don't think it's a big deal to have like a screen everywhere. But I think these, even for analog, they're pretty plain. You do have radar guided cruise control, and you do have a little center screen. You control it with this side of the wheel. You can change various vehicle settings overall, but nothing unusual that you wouldn't find in like any other car. You have rear cross traffic. You also have blind spot monitoring and forward collision up front. The screens in here, you know, they are a little bit outdated, but just like a little bit laggy, not the most intuitive to use. You do have very simple climate controls, just temperature, fan speed, and zone. You do have your shifter. This car uses a 6-speed automatic. There's your backup camera. It gets the job done. You know, just in general, like a bit of a plain interior, but everything's very functional. Everything's super easy to use. You have your headlight controls and your gauge cluster dimmer switch. We'll check out the center console, and pretty tiny, although not too bad. You do have your power outlet and a USB port right there. Some cars give you a little bit more ports to choose from, but up here you only have just like the one USB and the one power outlet. Not a big deal though. You'd have a glove box, pretty good size. And that about covers the interior. Really not a whole lot to go over in here. If you want like the best and the newest interior, this probably won't appeal to you too much, to be honest. I kind of got in this car and right away I was like, you know, this doesn't really look that nice. But if you don't like care about having like the newest, greatest, best technology, this car, like, it gets the job done. I mean, it drives pretty good. We'll get into the drive a little bit later on. But for right now, I'll show you guys under the hood. So pop the hood. All right. So this is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It makes 176 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque. A little bit underpowered for a 2-liter turbo. My Honda Accord with the same displacement engine makes way more power. Makes like 80 more horsepower and like 70 more pound-feet of torque than this. So not sure why. Maybe they use like a smaller turbo in this, or maybe it's just like the engine design, but just a little bit underpowered. It's actually pretty easy to see in this engine compartment, which is pretty nice. Check out the trunk space. All right. Okay, and you know, trunk space is pretty good actually. I think other cars maybe offer like a little bit of a deeper set trunk, but this is still very good. You do get a spare tire, nice to have. Pretty good amenities overall. Can also fold the seats down flat. But close up the trunk here. Check out the back seat room. And it's actually very roomy back here. The only complaint I have is just not a lot of amenities back here. Not a lot of glitz or glamour. Really rather plain. You don't even get mat pockets in the seats. You do get cup holders. Pretty nice, but not much else, to be honest. We'll hop back into the front. We'll get this thing out on the road. Take it for a little drive here. Give you guys some of my thoughts. All right. Just gonna put it in drive. And, we will set off. Sun is bright today. But, you know, it's actually a pretty good drive. When I first initially got in this car, I wasn't really sold on it. Just took me a little bit to get used to it, actually. But once I did, I found myself enjoying this car. It's pretty good. It's pretty peppy. It zips around pretty well, like typical VW that way. A lot of these Volkswagens, they get around pretty good. But just initially setting off, this is a pretty good car. You know, you get good visibility. You can see like right over this front hood just fine. You know, you barely have any hindrance up front in terms of your visibility. You do get pretty big side mirrors, and you get a clear back window to look out of. Yeah, like, you know, perfectly acceptable visibility. Really can't complain about that. The thing about this steering is it's pretty light. Definitely a very light steering feel in this Volkswagen Passat. I do like the steering though. I mean, it's a little bit light for my liking, but it's very precise. And it's easy to just maneuver this car around. It's easy to kind of like chuck it around exactly where you want it to go. So while it is light, you know, it is like it's quite peppy. It's quite zippy and it's quite peppy. These brakes have a pretty good feel. They're typical VW brakes. You know, they are a little bit mushy feeling, but they're very responsive actually. You get used to it though. Once you get used to this car's brake pedal, it's like very easy to, you know, control your stops, control how much you want to stop. The throttle was a little bit lackluster, I thought, when I first got in this car. But as I got used to this car, as I got used to how it responds, I actually find myself liking the throttle response. It's not, you know, it's not too vague. It's not like too dead on power. You do have to push it a little bit harder than you might expect. I know some cars out there, you just kind of tap the accelerator and you're off. In this car, you have to give it a little more pressure to really get some response out of it. But once you get used to it, it's very intuitive feeling. You can really control this car pretty well. It does what you want it to do for the most part. Ride is very good as well. I'm actually pretty impressed with the ride. It doesn't feel floaty or anything like that, but it's very settled and very smooth. If you're after like a car that has a smooth ride, like this is gonna feel pretty good. It doesn't impact the handling really. This still has a nice nimble handling dynamic. Keeps up with traffic pretty good. It's not as fast as like the Honda Accord 2-liter turbo, but you know, it has like the typical characteristics of a turbo engine, like pretty good torque down low, pretty good response to it. All right, we'll try our turning radius test. Just gonna cut the wheel all the way and probably get out of here because there seems to be people kind of standing around. Pretty good turning radius, kind of flipped it around right there without much issue. This 6-speed automatic is pretty good. It's a little bit slow sometimes, and it can feel a little unpredictable if you're not really used to this car. Try out the handling though real quick, and as you can see, it's pretty controlled and pretty connected. Car doesn't really throw any surprises at you in that sense. I find this 6-speed automatic is pretty intuitive. It takes some getting used to, like requires a bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, how to work the throttle and adjust, this transmission is pretty good. Pretty snappy. It seems to kick down when you need a little extra power. It seems to do a good job in general. It's not as quick shifting or as precise shifting as some of the newest and best automatics on the market, but it's a nice, like, spry automatic. I think most people will be pretty satisfied with this car and how it drives. Taking these corners, yeah, like you can actually push it pretty hard. I feel like this car would sell, you know, better if it had a nicer interior, I think. This driving experience combined with like a nice interior, I think would sell pretty good. And I think the exterior looks good too. I never thought the Passat was like an ugly car. Always thought it looked good, no matter its age. And this refresh kind of elevates things a little bit. I like how this car looks and drives. It's just the interior for me. That's like my one drawback with it. And that might be a significant one for some people because you spend most of your time on the inside of the car. It's pretty sharp going around the corner, and the steering is very composed at the same time. You know, when you exit a corner and straighten the car out, it straightens itself very smoothly. Yeah, just in general, you know, I feel like this car behaves how I expect it to, how I want it to. Reads my inputs pretty well. It's got that like refined, like European kind of solidity to it. Pretty good handler, pretty easy to pass. Take it on the highway here. Fortunately, I can't really test out the engine right now, but we'll try it later on in a few minutes here. But try out the passing power. Passes pretty good, as you can see. Some wind noise coming in, but not too bad. Does a pretty good job on the highway, like getting around that corner. But yeah, definitely some wind noise here and there. do a little brake check. All right. Yeah, I just didn't want my phone to fall, but they're pretty good. They're pretty sharp and responsive. All right. Try some of the engine performance. All right. It does drop off a little bit in the top end, kind of typical of a turbo engine, but I'd say like where this engine excels is pretty much in the low end side of things. All right, these cars are probably gonna go super slow down this entrance ramp, but I'll do my best. Ooh, pretty good, pretty good. Catching up to this TLX pretty effortlessly. Tires do squeal. But other than that, pretty linear handling, pretty composed. All right, maybe we'll try getting on it one last time here. All right, well, yeah, you get the idea. Time to get out of this rush hour traffic. Yeah, just gonna park it over here somewhere. Yeah, that's the Volkswagen Passat. A little bit dated in terms of the interior. But, you know, really not a bad driving car. It's pretty zippy, pretty confidence inspiring. Steering's a bit light, but it's very smooth and very direct. It's pretty peppy. You know, you do have to get used to some aspects of this car, but overall, it's not too bad. It's not too hard to figure out. All right, we're gonna shut it off and hop out. All right, thanks for watching.